another wonderful Friday evening, and it's always a pleasure to be here at 6 p.m. each and every Friday on your favorite and edutaining show, which is Empowerment Hour. Empowerment Hour is proudly brought to you by Today Ghana News TV and proudly sponsored by Authentic Sales, Taylor the Cobbler, Afranis Cuisine, and Jody's Kitchen. My producers for the show have been Mr. Seth Addy and Mama Ama Rosie. As usual, I am your host, Joyce OHENEWAA KWAPONG. Let's take a quick commercial break to give room for all of us to share the link and page, after which I would introduce my panelist extraordinaire and the topic for today's discussion. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show Empowerment Hour. Before I introduce my seasoned panelist for tonight, spare me some few minutes to introduce to you our topic. On 16th December 1992, the General Assembly of the United Nations appealed to governments around the world to observe 3rd December of each year as International Day of People with Disabilities. This is a day set aside to celebrate abilities of people with a disability all over the world. The aim of observing this day each year is to increase awareness and understanding of disability issues and the gains to be derived from the integration of people with a disability in every aspect of life. But an International Day alone on its own is not going to redress or address the pressing issues that persons with disabilities face each day. At Today Ghana News TV, we won't wait for such a ritual to amplify persons with disabilities. So today we have decided to use our platform to discuss the topic, Nation Building, the role of persons with disabilities. And as I mentioned early on, I have with me 4 panelists extraordinaire who will join us in the course of the discussion. Without much ado, let me introduce this panelist of mine as we discuss into details today's topic. So we have with us today Ida Sarr, Miss Ida Sarr. Okay, Miss Ida Sarr is the immediate past director of Communications and Public Relations Officer at African Disability Alliance. And it's an office in South Africa. She held that position for over 5 years, and she's a communication and disability expert. She has been on the forefront of drafting the African Protocol on Persons with Disabilities for the African Union. She was the project manager that trained over 400 African journalists on the United Nations New Terminology Manual for Persons with Disabilities. She was in Ghana twice to train journalists and persons working for disabled organizations. She is currently back in her home country, Dakar, Senegal, to continue the good work for such people. So you are welcome, Miss Ida Sarr. And then also our second panelist is in the person of Nina Okorafor, who is a social worker with the Department of Social Welfare at the Accra Rehabilitation Center. You are welcome, Miss Nina.
Thank you.
And then also the third person on our show is Mr. Peter Anomakodie, who is a disability advocate and a gospel musician, or should I say a gospel minister. You are also welcome, Mr. Peter Anomakodie. It's awesome to have you tonight. And finally, we have with us my very good friend who I met in my quest to become the grassroots secretary at the University of Ghana. The elections could not be held because of the COVID-19 virus, but I'm very grateful and thankful to God for bringing such a person my way. He's in the person of Nathaniel Labi Anda, and he's the founder and the chief executive officer for the Disability and Rehabilitation Association of Ghana. He had his first degree in community-based rehabilitation and disability studies from the University of Education, Winneba. He later had his master's degree in applied health social sciences from the University of Ghana. And he has been volunteering for the past 7 years with different international NGOs that are disability focused. He also has been rendering special educational services for learners with special educational needs. Mr. Anda has facilitated several workshops about persons with disabilities in Ghana. So my audience, we have with us all these noble personalities tonight, and we are hoping for a very awesome and entertaining program. You're welcome, my noble audience, and you're also welcome, my noble panelists for tonight. We will kick off the program, and we will also accept some comments from our audience or our viewers. So let's take a quick commercial break, and then we'll zoom into, talk about today's topic. Welcome back. And without taking much time, I would want to engage our panelists so that we wouldn't be far behind time. So, my producers, if you could bring our panelists on board so that we could begin our discussion. Okay, so I can see with me Mr. Peter Anomarko dear. Please, you're welcome to Empowerment Hour once again.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. So, Mr. Peter, we would want to find out from you a little bit about yourself. Could you tell us about yourself and also about your disability, whether or not you were born with it?
Thank you very much once again. And do I have to say I was born with it or I found it on the way? Well, I was told I was born on the way to the hospital, and in the process, something fell on my eye. And in those days, they would tell you a child does not become a disability in my locality. So happened was instead of treating it early, it took a long time before taking me to hospital, and then it was too late. And so that's what happened. And then from there, went to school for the blind, then to my school, then to University of Cape Coast, and then I did my second degree, master's with University of Nicosia, and then I worked with Ghana Blind Union, and from there Ghana Federation of Disability Organizations, and also worked with African Union of the Blind for 9 years, and then currently I'm working with a program called Ghana Somubi Jumedi. And then my lifetime, I do some music, gospel songs, and I'm married with a lot of children. So basically, that is me. And I'm visually impaired, yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Well noted. I think you have a very interesting profile, and you seem to be a very, very learned person. Looking at the brief profile that you've given about yourself, we would want to find out from you in the course of your education and all the great feats that you've achieved. Were there any challenges that you came across as a person with disability?
Oh, yes. In everyday's life, those regular people, as a human being, you face challenges. But then when it comes to persons with disabilities, that is where now the challenge becomes more. So on the way, starting all the way from the community, you grow where people do not understand you, thinking that um, if you are a person with disability, it's a curse from your family or the cause of your parents, sin they have committed. So that thing alone is a challenge on your way, growing with your peers. And then going to school, of course, there are a lot of issues in terms of access. Unlike these days, at least you have access to technology and maybe computer. In those days, there were no computers, and then it was for rich people to afford. So it was very difficult accessing a lot of books, and then you depend on your friends to read for you throughout up to university. You depend on friends reading for you, and so that education side, that is the challenge you find there, unless maybe you go into detail later. And then after going all this ladder and the challenges, trying forcing to get yourself somewhere, when you finish school, the biggest challenge becomes now employment, where you have to now compete with the regular people in the society. Of course, everybody, not those who can see, not everybody has job. So you are competing with those who don't have it. So it becomes a challenge for employers
Okay.
to get you a job, especially when there's no inclusive or inclusion education, and these employers don't know anything in terms of the abilities of persons with disabilities. So
Yes.
it becomes a challenge getting a job. And then when you struggle to maybe get a job, now the equipment to work with is also another challenge, because anything that visually impaired person uses is very, very expensive. Because assuming you get a laptop and I also get a laptop, for instance, I need a speech or screen reader to be able to use that laptop. And that is what people think it is extra, although it is not extra, because that will make you help me to work. So these are some of the challenges, accessing entertainment centers where most places are not accessible for you to also go and enjoy yourself as others are doing, are all part of the challenges that we face day to day. So all parts of our life, our social life, and everything has a lot of challenges. But it depends on individuals to work hard to rise up from that challenge.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting. And also, Mr. Peter, in school and all that, throughout your educational journey, throughout your social life, I mean, what actually inspired you? Because listening to you, you faced a lot of challenges. There were so many hurdles that you had to climb and all that. What actually inspired you? What was your drive? If you could share that with us.
So what drives me is why the question I always ask myself, why can't I do it? So that is what inspired me. All the time I ask myself, why can't I do it? If other people
I do
have
it.
done it, why not me? So when you have that at the back of your mind, then you will struggle to also make sure you get somewhere. So basically, for me, in sum, that is what I think it inspired me. I always ask myself, if other people are doing it, why not me? Why can't I do it? And that keeps me going. Especially when I started school, I was a little bit old because I did not start school early. I went to school and I stopped on the way because of the impairment. But then when I went to school for the blind, I also saw other people who were actually older than me and they had come to school for the blind. So the question is, why can't I also do it? So then it motivated me to move on. And another thing that I've also learned over the years is you can't force people to understand you, the society, but then you have to be an advocate, your own advocate. If they said you cannot, sweep in your house, do it for them to know you can do it. So
Yeah.
once you do it, it's a self advocate, and then it brings people to say, well, Peter can do it. We thought he couldn't do it. So that is something that motivates me, trying to do things myself.
Okay. That's awesome. Okay, that's very, very awesome listening to you in that regard. Also, in school, did you have any support system? What exactly was your support system? Was it your family? Was it your friends? Was it your lecturers or people you met? Or was it any disability group? Or what exactly was your support system?
So my support system, the first one was my parents.
Okay.
Um, when I started going to school, um, actually before I went to school, I was asked, a question was put to me and my brother. Do you want to learn vocation or you want to go to school? So we said we want to go to school. And they said, okay, fine. If you want to go to school, there's a school for the blind. So we go there. So they were very supportive when we chose to go we chose the educational ladder. And
Okay.
then another thing they're supportive is seeing other uh, persons who are also visually impaired like me, and they're also learning. So it motivates you. If your own colleagues are learning, why you can't do it? You also try and and work hard with them. So it becomes something like a competition because you also want to show that you can do it. And then,
Okay.
yeah, sometimes you get lecturers supporting you. There are other times some lecturers may not understand you. But then, like I said, self advocate is what will motivate them to understand you.
Yeah. Precisely so. Precisely so. Okay. I think we've engaged you for a while now, and I would want my producers to bring another person on board so we hear from that person and then we'll come back to you. Okay, so I can see Miss Nina on the screen. Hi.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Miss Nina.
Thank you.
It's awesome to have you here.
Glad to be here. Thank you for
Yeah,
having
you're
me.
welcome. Miss Nina, we would want to hear from you concerning your journey as a person with disability. First of all, were you born with it or along the line you happen to you happen to be in this state? What exactly?
My story is slightly different from Peter's. I
Okay.
was born very much sighted. I was sighted for the first 12 years of my life.
Wow.
And then I lost my sight due to medical complications. Um, I was having dizzy spells, lots of headaches. Doctors say I have to go in for a CT scan. CT scan shows I have to immediately go into surgery or I become a vegetable.
Whoa.
So it was a matter of life and death. We had to quickly go in for the surgery, thinking that whatever caused my disease spells and headaches will go away. And yes, they did go away, but they went with my sight.
Whoa.
And the doctors promised the sight will come back. It will come back just like a newborn baby.
Yeah.
And true to them, it started to come back. I could see flashes of light, I could see shadows, I could see images, but then it stopped. It didn't come any further.
Wow.
So this naturally meant that school had to halt. At the time, I was in about JSS 1, but school had to halt because, of course, I can't see to write anymore. There was some denial. My mom wanted me to go back to school, but the school was very wonderful. He spoke with us. and showed us the way to School for the Blind, KWAPONG, where I
Okay.
could go and study. And I was very excited because I felt that my mates were still studying and I was at home. I needed to get back to school and study too. So I was looking forward to a new adventure. I didn't think about it as I am now blind and had to be sad and all that because my family was there. They were very much supportive, very supportive. And so they took me to School for the Blind. I studied, I learned to read and write Braille. It was almost like learning to read ABCD all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, I used to write my BCE,
Okay.
proceeded to Okapiman School, wrote WASI,
Well,
proceeded to University of Ghana where I studied social work. And so currently I'm doing my master's in the University of Ghana Business School, but I'm also a social worker, gainfully employed with the Department of Social Welfare.
that's awesome. That's very interesting. Miss Nina, I would want to find out when you were pronounced visually impaired, how did you take it? What was your drive? What actually made you accept it and not, belittle yourself or feel like you are not part of, humanity and all that? How were you able to accept the news so that at least anyone listening to us would also be inspired? If you could
Well,
share.
truth is, for the very early stages, I didn't know I was blind because
Okay.
in my mind I could still see, and my family were there. I didn't lack anything. No one was derisive, no one was scornful. I was very, very much still very alive, still very full of life. It
Oh,
only hit me
that's a
that I
very
was
strong
blind.
support system from your family.
Yes, I did, very, very much. Thanks be to God.
We
But
give
it really hit me that I was blind when I
Mhm.
realized that I couldn't join my brothers to go to school. I began to ask myself, why not? Why can I not go back to school? Why can I not read? And then I realized that, okay, so I have actually been seeing in my head, but not
Yeah.
with my eyes.
Whoa.
And that's when it hits me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
So when we were showed the way to School for the Blind,
mhm.
my only reservations was that, well, I haven't seen any blind person before. All
Whoa.
the blind people I had ever seen were begging on the streets, and they were all quite old. Am
Yeah.
I going to be the only young person in the school? But I went there and I saw 3-year-olds, I saw
Whoa.
5-year-olds, so much younger than myself and a
Mhm.
lot more older than myself. And so I really fit in because I recognized that this was going to be as competitive as my sighted school was. And so for me, I went at it as though it was an adventure.
Okay. That's an interesting one. And also, we'll want to find out from you what are the okay, let me first share an experience I had from one other woman that is also physically challenged. She's in the person of Onyameba. I've forgotten her full name, but then she's also a musician, and she shared her story where she wasn't born physically challenged. In her quest to find put food on the table as usual, she goes to churches to sing and all that, and on her usual um activity, she got involved in an accident, and through that she lost both legs. So what happened was that in the hospital, she had people who came to visit, and then they were giving provisions and items to people who were on admission. And it happened that they gave some people and left others. And then one patient asked the nurse that, how come everyone has been given, or a lot of people have been given, but then I've been left out, even though I'm also on admission? And the nurse responded that we are giving it to people who are to be pitied. And to
Hmm.
translate it in Chi, Omo a Omo ho yɛ mmɔbɔ. So it's just disheartening and it's very sad to hear such things. Have you ever encountered or had any experience where people looked down on you or people felt you were less of a human being than they are? Do you have any of such terrible experiences?
I'll share with you one of my most awful memories when I was in the University of Ghana. So
Okay.
this was a time when I think I was going out one evening. I
Okay.
had very young, quite full of life. I had this very beautiful dress on. I felt very confident in my skin.
Yeah.
So I was walking with a couple of friends, chatting and just making our way to the premises. And a couple of guys were sitting by the roadside and they were like, wow, this is a beautiful girl coming. This is going to be my girl. Only for me to get closer, and the guy is like, oh no, she's blind. And he just gets up and walks away. It was very heartbreaking.
Yeah,
I
I
felt like,
can imagine.
yes. So it's almost like persons with visual impairment or persons with disabilities are almost always shunned out of social life.
Yeah.
So, like Peter said, it's up to us to be our own advocates. It's up to us to find our own fit and fit in and do it so well. We are first comfortable, and second, we are creating awareness. Because where we are is not like we chose to be here.
To be there. Exactly.
Anyone else can join us, although
Yes.
we pray not. But it's
Mm-hmm.
not like we chose to be here. So it will be quite unfair for others to think we chose to be here and so we should be here on our own.
Mm-hmm.
It is up to everyone else to make where we are comfortable because who knows, they could join us.
Yeah. That's so true. Wow. Okay, Miss Nina, would also want to find out what are some of the misconceptions with persons with disabilities? Sometimes
Ah, okay.
disabilities
Mm.
don't have a very good social life. They only associate with people of their class or people who are in the same situation as they are. People also feel like persons with disabilities find it very difficult to marry. When you eventually even marry them, you end up giving birth to people with disabilities and a whole lot of funny misconceptions. What are some of the misconceptions? And then if you could also clarify some of them, we would really appreciate.
Okay, so misconceptions has been with us ever since the beginning of Adam. I
Yeah.
think one of the very early uses, I would say, for blind people were that they were always to sit at the feet of kings. So they will be the first to eat the king's food and get the highest brunt of poison if there was poison in the king's food. So it has been as old as forever.
Yeah.
Even in some other cultures, people actually chose to cut off their thumbs because they didn't want to, I mean, like men, young men who were
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be called to be soldiers, will intentionally cut off their thumbs to show
Well,
that, well, I'm disabled, so I can't hold a sword. You
mm-hmm.
can't force me to be a soldier. Unfortunately, in those days, disability was, I would say in that context, disability was desired. But now, understanding of disability has really evolved.
Yeah.
Some say people are born um, with disability because their parents probably were cursed or they
Yeah.
committed some crime, some traditional crime or spiritual whatever. And so, if you are blind, then it's a misfortune that has befallen you.
Mm-hmm.
And people will say, like you rightly said, I'm not going to let my son or my daughter marry a disabled person because I don't want a disabled person to be in my family or to
Yeah.
have children with grandchildren with disability.
Yes.
Well, so science have come to tell us that, and this will be one of the very first misconceptions I'll try to clarify.
Okay.
Not all persons with disabilities were born with their disability.
Mm-hmm.
Some disabled conditions are congenital. Like some are hereditary, right? But not all of them. And so it will be up to whoever who wants to marry a person with disability to investigate, to find out what the causes of that person's disability was. So like Peter K said, he wouldn't have been born blind if not for the conditions under which he was born. He has children, I know very lovely children, who are all very much sighted. I
Wow.
wasn't born blind. I lost my sight when I was 12.
Yeah.
There's no blind person in my family that I know of. And so the possibility is very high, by the grace of God, that I'm not going to have any blind children.
Yeah.
But then some medical conditions, if not taken care of, especially at very young age, could result in disabilities. We know of measles and polio. Of course, medicine has tried to tone those effects down.
Yeah.
But we still have a lot of quote unquote low literate levels among us. And so per that reason alone, its disability is going to continue from that front. There are so many other misconceptions that a blind woman will not be able to cook. But trust me, I live alone and I cook for myself. All my life in school, I was cooking for myself. I wash my clothes, I dry my things, I keep my surroundings clean. I pick the clothes I want to wear, and I would say I'm quite fashionable. I play sports. I play go ball for Ghana Blind Sports Association. I'm actually the national team captain. So there's a lot blind people can do. But if we only sit down and refuse the opportunity for them to show themselves or give them the opportunity, we call it social inclusion. Include them in society because we are human beings, and by being human alone, we have the right to participate in nation building, to participate in all walks of life. But to say that you will not give me the opportunity because I am blind, I think it's wrong.
Yeah, precisely.
It's a huge fault of society, and it's up to us to teach them.
Okay, interesting. It's been very interesting and educative. Sorry, listening to you, Nina, and we would want to move to Miss Ida as well to hear her views. So we would come back to you and then listen to other interesting stories and interesting things that you have for us. So, our audience, we have with us Miss Ida Sir. You're welcome, Miss Ida.
Thank you. Good evening, Joyce. Good evening to all viewers.
Good evening once again. It's very awesome having you with us tonight.
My pleasure.
Great. So as usual, just as we asked our other panelists, we would want to find out from you, Miss Ida. Tell us a bit about yourself, whether you were born with your disability or you grew up with it.
Okay, actually, Joyce, I was not born with a disability. I contracted polio when I was 3 months, and it was really, obviously, I was not conscious of all those things, during the first years up to 6, 7. But later, I faced a lot of difficulties, going to school because, I have a lot of difficulties to work, to go to school, then to go to university. It was really, really, really challenging. And I did not really have the opportunity, to tell the truth, to have my family support. I first faced discrimination among my own family. So you can imagine how difficult it can be.
It was for you, yeah.
Yes, because the family should be the foundation. It should be the foundation to support you in your struggle. But thanks God, I had the opportunity also to meet wonderful people, friends around me, helping me, because of my difficulties to work tests could face. And we talk a lot about empowerment, and it is important also to just to say that we need people with disability need to have access to many facilities. Just I was in my teens years I had assistive devices to help me to work.
Yeah.
And it was quite challenging. Yeah.
Wow. Well, so please, we would want to find out from you, with little, or should I say, no family support, what actually inspired you? Did you have any mentors? Did you have people you looked up to? What was your drive? Because it's very, very disheartening and very sad not to have a very strong, supportive family, especially in such a situation. So what was your drive as a person?
Okay. As a person very, very young, I started to look to read a lot,
Okay.
to try to find some kind of role model. You
Okay.
see, that gave me really, really strength, also strength to struggle, and also my friends. I had very, very, very good friends. They are still my friend to support
Wow.
me, to give me strength. Yeah.
That's awesome. I think Miss Ida's network is a bit challenging, but we'll try and then cope so that we could come to a successful end of the program. We'll try and bear with her. So we'll take some few messages. I've seen a lot of messages coming through and would want to read a few of them, and we'll go to our fourth panelist. So Ama Santoa says most of them come from poor background, hence society sees them as contagious. So these are one of the misconceptions. Society seeing persons with disability as contagious people. It's rather unfortunate, and I think after this program, we hope that people would reform or change their mindsets regarding persons with disabilities. Dina Mba says, no condition should limit you. Certainly, no condition should limit you. Joseph Elom Aka also says, Mr. Labi, David Alote of Christian Methodist Senior High School sends his regards. So this from David Alote to Mr. Labi. All right. Odoi Tema also says, watching live. We are grateful to have you watch us. Ama Santa also says, blessed evening, you all. Please share the page or copy the link for further viewers to be educated. This is very important. As we are still going on with the discussion, you can share the link on Facebook, on Instagram, and have other people join us so that they would also be educated. I don't know if I have some few more messages to go, my producers. Okay, so without any message, let's take a quick commercial break and then we would have our fourth panelist to talk to us. We'll be right back. All right, yeah, welcome back once again to Empowerment Hour. And we would want to call upon our fourth panelist in the person of Nathaniel Labi Anda to also share a bit with us concerning persons with disabilities. He's had an extensive, project, or should I say extensive profile regarding working with persons with disabilities. Mr. Nathaniel, you are welcome to Empowerment Hour show.
Thank you very much, and greetings to your audience and your viewers. And then thank you very much also for this great opportunity. I must say that this is a very great show, and
Thank you.
anyone out there who is really watching, in
Yeah,
fact, these are the kind of programs we need out there in
yeah,
order to educate quite a lot of people about this, especially those at in the higher, places, those in authority.
yeah,
They
yeah.
need this information. Yes. So I'm available, and please, I'm listening.
Okay. So, Mr. Nathaniel, from your profile, you've had an extensive background regarding persons with disabilities. I want to find out from you what inspired you to champion such a noble cause for such persons.
Well, once I was in school, or where I had my first degree,
Okay.
University of Education, Winneba, like I stated earlier, I studied community-based rehabilitation and disability studies. And one of the things that came out during the courses that I took is conventions, laws, and policies in disability and in Africa. And this is where I got a drive from.
Okay.
The reason is that there are a lot of policies, there are a lot of rules and regulations, but how effective are these rules? Most of the time, we are very good on paper. When it comes to paperwork, oh yes, we are good.
Mhm.
Ghana sign everything that comes in person with disabilities. But how
Yeah.
effective are we implementing these policies? How
Yeah.
inclusive are these policies? So one of the things that really inspired me is when you look at the policy, you realize that it is a very clean work that has been done. However, the implementation and its effectiveness to render comprehensive services for those out there who really needs it is not available. And
Mm-hmm.
even if there are challenges to this effect. So what do we do as a nation? What do we do as individuals? What do we do as organizations? So this is where I took the stand and I said, then in that case, we see how best we can rectify this problem. Though I know I can't do it all alone, but then that is why it is important for effective collaboration. So
Mm-hmm.
what Ida said, you know, it is key. What Peter said is also key, and what Nina also said is very true. So there are quite a lot of work for us to do with respect to empowerment.
That's exactly true. That's very true. There's a lot to do with regards to empowerment. And as Nina and Cole said, when it comes to empowerment regarding persons with disabilities, most of it also lies on them because they realize that society and all that is not really doing much for them. So they try to empower themselves and they try to come all out confident within themselves. So I think it's a very key issue that you have raised. We'd also want you to also educate us more about Dara, about your foundation, what you do, what are some of your services you render, and all that. If we could have a little profile about it, we'll be glad.
Okay, thank you very much once again. So disability, DARAG is an acronym or it's a short name for Disability and Rehabilitation Association of Ghana.
Okay.
Now, DARAG works in on the CBR matrix. We work
Okay.
in 5 key components of the CBR matrix. We work under health,
Okay.
livelihood, empowerment, social, and then health. So under each component, we are looking at various elements. So DARAC is into different diverse, components, and also works with various sections that we deem it necessary that persons with disabilities may need. So of course, those out there who have um, disability, they have disabling conditions, of course, they need health services. How can we provide these health services to them. We look at that as well. Education. When we talk of education, of course, we all know about the SDG,
Yes.
education for all. Exactly. So how are we also providing these services to persons with disabilities? We are looking at social. You mentioned in your presentation about marriage. Society ridicule persons with disabilities with regards to marriage. No one wants to marry someone with disabling condition.
Yeah.
Like Nina said, this fine guy saw her. She looks beautiful. Seeing her coming from afar had the assumption that, oh, this will be my girl. She approaches and then there's change of mind. Why that kind of perception? You see? So there is a need for us to take care of that aspect as well. And we are also looking at empowerment. How are we empowering the youth? How are we empowering persons with disabilities to take ownership of their lives, to live a self-fulfilling lives? Is it through livelihood projects or so on and so on? So these are some of the things that we do. And we do outreach programs a lot, especially in the interlands where a lot of people do not go. That is where we normally go.
Go to. Okay, that's interesting, and that's very commendable as well. So more power to your elbows, and
Thank
I'm
you.
sure over time, as I also enter into such NGO activities, would have a collaboration or partner with you in that regard. Also, Mr. Nathan, I want to find out from you, what, as you engage with such persons, what are some of the experiences that they may have shared with you regarding their condition? Do they face any discrimination? What are some of the things they go through?
In fact, whilst during my master's program, my research was based on access to healthcare services.
Okay.
And I did a qualitative study. So I engage parents of children with special needs.
Okay.
Children with disabilities, yes. And most of them, there are so many things going on in our society that impede upon the progress of parents of children with special needs, and even those with special needs themselves, with disabilities, I mean.
Okay.
So one of the things that they mentioned, discrimination, is one key factor. Discrimination. Discrimination is a strong tool that society has clenched on. And this kind of thing is really causing a lot of havoc to persons with disabilities. Someone who comes from a home of, someone who comes from a home who has a disability is getting discriminated upon. Why? Because that person has a disability. Number two, access. Peter mentioned of accessibility whilst he was in school.
Yeah.
Access, in fact, our buildings, in fact, the public buildings,
yes,
accessibility, it is so crucial, and it's really, really, really something, a matter of concern. Why is it that Ghana have this, constitution, have this at 715, okay, stating clearly and categorically that there should be accessibility to all public, places. But when you go to these places, you don't see anything. That is where I get so, I'm concerned about this. Is it that we are just writing it for writing sake?
yeah.
Why are we not implementing? Look, the schools that render special education services, and they really understand the concept of special education and inclusion, okay, even the school itself is not even accessible. So you ask, why? What is our stand?
Yeah.
Is it that we are just good on paper and we can't implement? What is going on? It is really a matter of concern. You talk about employment. Mr. Peter mentioned about employment. You finish school, you now have to go out there and fight for jobs. Meanwhile, it is stated clearly in the Constitution, the Article 115 again, that person there shouldn't be any discrimination on any basis of employment. But when you go out there, someone who has graduated with master's degree qualifies for a certain job opportunity, the person goes and the employer sees the person with having a disability, he says, no, I'm not employing you. Why? It is because they are not ready to provide reasonable accommodations, making adaptations and providing assistive device that will aid the person to be proficient in his work. They are not ready for that. Even the ILO has also stated categorically in the same regards. The United Nations Conventions on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities also make statements to that effect. So what is the problem? What is really going on? Meanwhile, Ghana has signed all these documents stating clearly that there's going to be provision for all these things. And of course, stigmatization is also another thing that they also mention. They are being stigmatized. Even when they go to the hospital, the doctors even discriminate upon them, stigmatize them, because they don't even understand the condition.
Yeah.
When they go to the hospital for assessment, even some of them have to stay in a long queue, a very long queue. Meanwhile, you see that this person really needs urgent care, but no, they are not ready for that. They will tell you, follow the queue.
Yeah.
I know they are doing their work, but then like I'm saying, the Act 715 has made it so clear. You know, things should be eased a little bit for persons with disability. You don't expect a mother who has a child with cerebral palsy. The child cannot sit, the child is heavy, the child has, frigidity, the child is spastic, you know, and the child cannot do anything. And the hospital itself is not even having elevators.
Yeah.
Expect this mother to carry the child to climb the stairs, and when a mother gets there, there is no sitting place. The mother has to sit from morning till evening. So all these things is really a matter of concern. It's really a matter of concern. So you see, even in the trotro transportation, even in the trotro that we all know, the public transport, the Trotsky, they are all discriminated.
Even our bus.
Exactly.
It's not disability friendly. Yeah, majority of our bus stops are not disability friendly. And it's very, very pathetic. We have a very long way to go as a country. Yes, we are doing paperwork, we are doing well with the documentation aspect, but when it comes to reality, the practical aspect of the whole situation, I think we have a very long way to go. A very, very long way.
Very, and you know, we have to start from somewhere. We know that the government has policies, quite a lot of work to do, but we have to start from somewhere. You know, we don't expect the government or other institutions to just come on board and change everything within a twinkle of an eye. No, but at least there should be some kind of landmarks. There should be something that we are looking up to. There should be some kind of changes.
Yeah.
You know, these things are really needed. We have to implement these things, not just on paper. Paperwork, we are tired of it. We want to see action. That is what is needed.
Great. We want to see action from people in authority and people in the ranks and files of this country. Also, would want to find out from you, Mr. Nathaniel, what do you think, what support systems do you think could be created to better assist persons with disabilities? What are some of the support systems that could be created?
Well, for support systems, you know, we have wide range of them. But we should also look at the fact that we are looking at universal designs, things that is going to take into consideration all disabling conditions. So I'm looking at the universal design. It's one key factor that we are looking at. Then secondly, we also should have some kind of policies that are to be put in place to make room for employment opportunities. At least every governmental organizations or employer must at least have a section for employment. When you go to United States, there is such policy. Okay, even in other countries, there is such policy that if you are running a public, organization and you are employing people 1% or one person should be a person with disability. That is also needed, and then health-wise, because these support services, like I was telling you about health and then education, all these things are needed. Do you know that even the NHS, the NHIS, yes.
NHIS, yeah.
Yes. In fact, most of the parents with special children, I mean, those with disabilities, are really complaining about it. Because you'll be surprised that some of these specialized rehabilitation services like physiotherapy, occupational therapy, speech and language therapy, and so on and so forth, just one of them is covered by the health insurance. The rest you pay. And it is very expensive, I must say. But this is the kind of service that the children need. The parents are yearning for it, but there is no access because of funds. So we need all these supports, these support services.
Okay, that's great. That's great to hear. Do you think also there are other? Okay, I think I have some comments for you, Mr. Nathaniel Labi. Let me read through those comments and then I'll get back with my questions for you. Joseph Elam Aka says, even within the organizations, there is discrimination. If the disabled person is from poor home with all the qualifications, there is discrimination. If he's from a rich home, he or she is called person with special needs. And because that person is from a good home, that person gets good attention and friendly environment. Why is it so? I think please ask the question. Let me give a follow-up question. Is it actually so that persons from good homes are those that are being referred to as persons with special needs, and those from bad homes or poor homes, or should I say homes that there's little resources, are rather called persons with disabilities? Is that really so?
Thank you for the question. And then Joseph, thank you so much for this contribution. I must say that this, it is not like that. Okay. What is happening is that there is resolution, or let me say there has been some kind of transition, okay, from the terminologies. Before, let me give you an instance. Before, we used to say that mental retardation, okay, someone who has mental problem, we say mental retardation. But now that terminology is no more used. We are now using intellectual disability. And in fact, those that we say persons with this disabled person, that terminology is also not used because you are addressing the condition before the person. So it is not right. It has now changed to either you say the person is abled differently, or you address the being and then the disabling condition, such as person with disability. So you address the person before the disabling condition. But to address the question that he's asking, if someone is from a good home, the person is special needs. I mean, maybe there's misconception though, but I think, like I said, it is the change of the terminology, terminology. Okay. But there again, society needs to be educated. There should be more awareness on the terminologies that we are using, so that we'll be more abreast with the terms. Now we don't say disabled person, right? You don't say that anymore.
Okay. Well, that's really educative. And because of time, we would want to move to the other panelists and we'll come back to you and ask you a few more questions. So thank you so much for all these awesome contributions, Mr. Nathaniel. We really appreciate. So my producers, if you could bring on board one other panelist so we could engage. Okay, so we have with us Mr. Peter Anomakwa there once again. Okay, so we'd want to find out from you, Mr. Peter. Let's go a bit into your personal life. Looking at your condition, how were you able to, identify such a very beautiful woman and then, marry her? How were you able to, see that beauty in her? Would want to know about that.
Thank you very much. That's interesting. I did not see the outer beauty, but
Okay.
I saw the inner beauty.
Okay.
The beauty comes from the heart of a
Yeah.
person. So for us, or for me personally, I see beauty inside. And the woman I chose has that kind of beauty inside her, has that kind of heart inside her. So normally you see if a child is stubborn and he or she does something, then people will just say, look at her, or will start insulting her. But if you are good and your character is good, no matter how ugly you are, people, if something happens to you, people say, oh, she was very beautiful, she was very handsome. So that is how I take my. So yes, I met my wife in Accra, and we
Okay.
agreed to stay together. So that's how I see the beauty.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Very interesting. Okay, so we'd also want to find out from you. Um, I think currently you are into music and all that. What what kind of music are you into? And a little bit about your social life.
All right. So the music came actually when I was in school for the blind. I used to play guitar, and then I used to also join the school band, and we used to go out to play guitar band, and some towns around. So later, when I finished JHS, and my dad said that no, I should continue the education. He doesn't want me to go much into music. And I said, okay, fine, but I'll come back to it later in future. So when I was in, I stayed in Kenya for 9 years when I was working with African Union of the Blind. So one day I bought myself a piano and I started
Okay.
playing it. So when I started, then the music started coming. And
Okay.
so myself, I said I'm contributing to the gospel industry. So that's where I chose. But my lifetime, I love going to beach a lot because I love water. But unfortunately, if you leave me in water, I'll drink everything. I don't know how to swim, but I love staying in the water for whatever reason it is. And also because I love music, I also love going to places where they play music. I like playing with children, and so I love playing with my children a lot. And when I'm alone, you hear me listening to radio or playing, listen to songs. Or I also love being with friends. So sometimes I like chatting with friends, talking with them, making jokes here and there. So that keeps me going. That's what I see as my social life. Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. That's interesting. Would also want to find out from you, what support systems could you think could be created to better assist persons with disabilities?
I think Nathaniel mentioned a lot of them,
Hmm.
but all that the authorities needs to understand. We have agreed to. Um, we've started the what do you call it, the SDG 5 years ago or 6 years ago,
Hmm.
and we say leave no one behind.
Yes.
If the countries, not only in Ghana, but in African countries and especially Ghana also, if we want to achieve this,
Yeah.
then we need to look at persons with disabilities.
Yes.
What is in them and what they can do. Because if you want to eradicate poverty and you don't include those who are poor among the poor people and those who has disability, persons with disability in your programs, and then you said you want to develop, it cannot work. It cannot unless you include them. And people should understand, once you include persons with disabilities in the things that you do at the beginning, at the planning stage, if you include them, it's very less expensive than overthought. After you are finished and you say, let me think about them, it becomes expensive. So in whatever we do, we need to include persons with disabilities at the first beginning so that we can achieve whatever we want as a country. If you want everybody to be inclusive and build our nation, Ghana, then all of us needs to get involved. Don't leave anyone together. And I would say, let us go together. That is what we can do.
Okay. So listening to you earlier as well, Mr. Peter, you mentioned that there are lots of challenges that you face as persons with disabilities. Would want to find out from you that what do you find most challenging when it comes to communicating the assistance that you need as persons with disability?
The institutions, unfortunately, what comes into their mindset is expensive. The money, the monetary aspect of it. That is now the challenge we have. Because once you are telling them this is the reasonable accommodation you can put in place to benefit or for persons with disabilities to perform effectively, then they start thinking about cost.
Yeah.
So that is why I mentioned. But if you include it at the beginning, we talked about the construction of buildings or hospitals or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If you start making ramps at the beginning, it's less expensive than after you had finished. And then you say, let me bring in elevator, let me make ramps for persons with disabilities. So if you develop and you include persons with disabilities, of course, everybody gets to benefit. Somebody using wheelchair, pregnant women and elder persons or older persons also use it. So why don't you make it accessible from the beginning? So I think whatever institution that we find, we should look at accessibility first. Because if it is not
Okay.
accessible, if it is information and it is not accessible, still.
I think we are facing a
For
little
me, if
bit.
it's a building, it is not talking about inclusion.
Okay. Let's take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Empowerment Hour Show. And I would want to take the opportunity to once again acknowledge my sponsors for tonight. So we have, as usual, our sponsors who have been with us through thick and thin, and they've believed in the vision that we carry as Empowerment, our program, or as Today Ghana News TV. And we have with us people who have supported us, which includes Taylor and the Cobbler, Authentic Sales, Afranis Cuisine, and Jody's Kitchen. We would want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to you for always supporting this show. We appreciate and we hope to have more from you day in and day out. So I would want to read a few more comments from my audience, and then we would proceed with other questions for our panelists. Okay, so Papsi says, disability is more about physical and mental inability, interaction with negative environmental factors, while special needs is related to education, learning disabilities. So thank you so much. Ima Adiza also says, disability is not inability. They do so many amazing things. Okay. Amma Santua says, it's not society's fault to treat them this way. People with disabilities, it is not society's fault to treat them, that's persons with disabilities, anyhow. Parents refuse to care for them. They are not neatly kept. The list goes on and on. Okay, so I think, as some of our panelists already made mention, some parents are in denial when they realize that their kids are now persons with disabilities. So what happens is that they don't give them the support that they actually deserve, or the support that they need to help them grow with, other people in society. So that's what happens. And then we end up seeing persons with disabilities not neatly dressed and all that. And we see them along the streets begging for alms and all that. Would want to call on all parents with persons with disabilities or with kids who are having some special needs, that they should try and then give them the necessary support that they need. They shouldn't shun them because they are their kids, and they should be able to support them through and through from the time that they've been pronounced as persons with disabilities throughout their whole life. They need that support, and would want to call on such parents to be that kind of support system for their wards or for their children. I don't know if we have some few more comments from our audience. If there are any, my producers could project it. If not, we would want to welcome one of our panelists once again, that's Miss Nina, to talk to us about a few more questions. So Miss Nina, I would want to find out from you, do you have any suggestions on how to minimize disability oppression? Any suggestions that you could give us?
So I would like to start like this. Now more than ever in history, persons with disabilities are really out there. Like so many years ago, you wouldn't find persons with disabilities working in very good spaces. It's almost always the same thing, begging and having to be pitied. But now, a lot more persons with disabilities are going to school, are engaging themselves in so many exploits. And so this shows that the future is only going to get brighter.
Yeah.
But education has been going on round. They say disability is a social construct. I wouldn't be disabled. I wouldn't be blind. I wouldn't be unable to enter a building if that building does not have a ramp.
Yeah.
As in, if there was a ramp, or if there were easy accessible ways to go into that building, then I wouldn't need any help. So this is what we mean by disability is a social construct. It is barriers created by society that makes people disabled. If so for instance, people understood or listened to education on sickle cell births and all that. As in, check your genotype before you have babies with another person. All this information will help us sort of reduce the prevalence of disability. Of course, it will never completely go away because there's still lots of accidents around, both medical and physical.
Yeah.
But all we need to do is to understand that we as society, it is us people that make up society. It is you, it is me, it is the next person on the street, it's the person living next door or even behind us. So if tomorrow someone falls into a gutter and unfortunately breaks her ankle, she will now start using crutches and will be part of the disability world, even if for a very few time.
Mm-hmm.
That is when we will now start understanding how come accessibility is an issue. You understand where I'm coming from?
Yes.
People with disabilities go to school, and because of their talent or their interest, opt to study a certain kind of course, but they are not allowed. Why would you say that is? It's really out of unfairness.
Yes.
But then you realize that the moment a rich person goes through such a problem, there will be a solution.
Yes.
So I think that us as social people, we are selfish. You know, someone was saying that I think one of your comments said that the poor people are called persons with disabilities, and rich people are called persons with special needs. If you ask me, I'll say this is very similar to the difference between a watchman and a security man.
Yes.
You know, it all boils down to the persons with disabilities and the structures around them polishing themselves up. So why am I here all nicely spoken and contributing on your show and not on the streets begging? It is because of some of the things that I've been exposed to, thanks to my family and thanks to great mentors I have had in my life, like Peter Kay. But not everybody is exposed to such opportunities. And so if you know someone in your area who is disabled, and you know that there are structures that could get the person a better life, contribute your quota. Don't just sit by and watch. Because there's a saying that says that the deepest part of hell is reserved for those who maintain their neutrality in the face of moral crisis. So you are actually contributing to the problem going on if you only sit by and watch. That's what I have to add.
Precisely so. Precisely so. So, Miss Nina, I would also want to find out from you. Do you have any examples of pride or empowerment around your disability to share? Any examples of empowerment?
Examples of maybe you would come a bit clearer with your question. Examples of empowerment, as in programs.
Either in terms of programs, in terms of self-empowerment,
Okay,
any
well,
form.
so I, for one, I work with the Department of Social Welfare. I know of
Okay.
some structures government has in place. One being the disability,
Yeah.
the District Assembly Common Fund.
Okay.
This is a small fund set aside in every district for persons with disabilities to apply to, and they're supposed to get support and with relation to education, starting up a business, and as well as medical care. So
Okay.
this I know is something that exists. Of course, there has been complaints about accessing the fund, but the fund is there. The fund is there. We all know what bureaucracies and all the stumbling blocks that arise when applying for some of these funds. But now our viewers know they can help spread the word and tell other persons with disabilities in their areas to go to the social welfare department in their district and apply for these funds.
Okay.
Again, there are rehabilitation centers in every district, in every region. Like I work in the rehabilitation center in Accra, where we help give vocational skill training to persons with disabilities. So we train them on how to sew. We give them tailoring skills. We even teach them how to do leather work to make very good durable sandals and shoes. And some also learn how to make beads of all shapes and sizes, very beautiful ones, of course. And there are so many
Okay.
other things they are learning: how to make fancy cake, how to make liquid soap, and soft drinks and ice cream and all those things. Our aim is that with these skills, when they go back home, they'll be able to invest in themselves and work, produce some of these things and make money for themselves. This way, they will not go back to the streets and beg. This
Okay.
way,
So
they'll be able to be independent and they'll be able to preserve some dignity for themselves.
okay. That's interesting. But I would want to find out, how do persons with disabilities get access to some of these things you are doing for them? Because sometimes I wonder, we have a lot of them on the street begging and all that. And I don't know,
Well,
well, I'm thinking sometimes I begin to wonder, there are people, well-able and energetic men and women with them begging. And I'm like, with all the stress that they are going through, both they themselves and then the persons with disabilities, why can't they get themselves engaged in, let's say, a business or something that they could use to take care of these persons with disabilities that they move around with? So,
the truth is, even with those begging on the streets,
yeah,
they are not just the persons with disabilities alone. Able-bodied people beg on the street, as well as persons with disabilities.
yes,
The sad thing is that these persons with disabilities go on the streets to beg, and people give them money, so they will keep coming back.
that's true.
They will keep coming back. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, in fairness to them, their families have shunned them. These
Yeah.
same families form part of our society. In TSO, everybody should hold one part, another person holds one part. Then together we can all carry it. But if some carry some parts and others refuse to contribute their quota, then the structure is going to continually be rickety. We will not make much progress. And so I'm pleading to some of these families who have persons with disabilities and refuse to take care of them, for which reason they go out there to beg. You are actually contributing to the problem going on. You are contributing to this whole problem we are talking about, discrimination and stigma. It is all part of your fault. Bring them back home. Give them the support my family gave me. Give them the support Peter K's family gave him. And
Yeah.
see if they will not come out to even take care of you.
Wow. That's a great one
But
then.
the services are there, like I said, to apply for the Assembly Common Fund. It is in every district in Ghana. They can just walk to the social welfare office of where they live and
Okay.
register as a person with disability. Tell the office what they need support for, whether they need to set up a cold store, they need to set up a business, or they need to go to vocational skill training, or they need to go to school. The monies are there. It goes there every quarter, and it is from the government.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So I would also want to find out, when it comes to the training and the skills that you give persons with disabilities, as a social welfare unit, how do people get access to those as well? Aside getting the district assembly common fund money, how do they get access to these trainings?
So similar to this, so once you get registered in your district, my
Okay.
department is under the social welfare. So you go
Okay.
there and you say you need vocational skill training, you'll be referred to the closest rehabilitation center to you,
Okay.
who will then assess you and say, okay, with your visual impairments and your hands are working well, you can actually learn to make beads or learn to make, some of these handicrafts and
Okay.
these things. Yes, so the social welfare department has been really helpful on that score. Alternatively, they can just walk to any rehabilitation center and they will get the support services.
Okay. And also, we have a lot of non-governmental organizations that support persons with disabilities. Are there any opportunities whereby they could partner with the social welfare or get assistance from them in executing some of their projects?
Well, I would say non-governmental organizations have been God sent right from the beginning. They have almost always taken the lead, and government has had to follow. They have helped with a lot of advocacy because they are made up of persons with disabilities themselves and people like Nathaniel who have studied
Yeah.
into the field and are really ready to help make the world a better place. So non-governmental organizations have been very great in the awareness creation field. For us as Accra Rehab Center, we are surrounded by almost all of them. We have the Ghana Blind Union, the Ghana Federation for Disability Organizations, and all its members. So we are in close contact with these NGOs. But
Okay.
I also encourage more NGOs on the field to get registered with the social welfare department and get themselves known so that they will be able to reach out to the persons with disabilities. They actually, the persons with disabilities are organized in groups.
Okay.
If you look out for them, you will find them. They are there. So NGOs should keep doing the work they are doing and reach out. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for your contributions, Miss Nina. We would want to also take some submissions from our other panelists and we'll get back to you. Okay, so we have Miss Ida with us once again. And we would want to find out from you, Miss Ida, what advice will you give to people who are working or living with persons with disabilities?
My message to persons with disabilities, especially women, they have to be very, very strong. Because when you have a disability, you work twice, which is not normal. And I would like to take this opportunity to talk about also government responsibility.
Okay.
And I believe that now from the charity approach, we have come to another level of the struggle, that is human rights approach. What should be also the obligation for African states to take the responsibility as persons with disability also are advocating for their inclusion in all spheres of life. And Mr. Nathaniel talked here earlier about the legal instruments that are often adopted and ratified, like the UN Convention for the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And in Africa, we have the African Disability Protocol, which is very important to us as African because it is adapted to our context. And since its adoption by the African Union in January, if I'm not mistaken, January 2018, only a few countries has ratified it and it can't enter into force. So we need 15 ratifications so this protocol can enter into force. And besides this protocol, also we have the model disability laws that just guide the states. If they have a national law, they can align it. If it is not, if they don't have it, I think that they can use this model disability law. And we talk also about empowerment, but I have the feeling that sometimes it's more about buzzwords people are using, and we really need to to understand and to raise awareness about all those concepts like empowerment and inclusion and what it means to people with disability. It's important for us as persons with disability to be able to have access all the same services and opportunities as other people. And we also need to be able to go to school. I think that I mentioned the difficulties. I had to go to school, to go to universities. It was very, very difficult. So I think that we really, really need to be able to go to school, to have access to healthcare, and also earn an income. We need to go to work. My background is journalism. I've worked as a journalist for years, and I have worked also for NGOs, continental African NGOs, and I train journalists about disability issues and the use of the right terminology when we talk about persons with disabilities, and etc. And also, just to say that, to add that empowerment is about people being able to have a voice and take control of their own voice and lives and futures. So all people, whether they have a disability or not, need to be involved in the decisions that affect their lives. And what we need is a mainstream society. It means that we need to represent persons with disability and persons with non-disability side by side.
Okay.
And yes, so yeah, this is what I really think that we need now to talk about, all those good policies and programs that we have and how to implement them, Joyce.
Okay. Well noted, Miss Ida. So because of time, I would want to take your final words, and then we'll move to the other panelists and take their final words as well. So, Miss Ida, I would want to find out from you, what advice will you give to persons who were not born with any disability but have found themselves in such a situation and they are unable to accept themselves for who they have become now? Any word of encouragement for them?
Personally, I believe in faith. Just to be very confident.
Okay.
And to see themselves as person. I can't say, I don't want to use normal persons. No, this word should not exist. Just to see themselves as member of society, and then do not wait for charity, because it's a question of human rights. You deserve it. So it's not a charity that people are or government are just doing to persons with disabilities, but they deserve to go to school, to have a job, to be strong, and to know their rights, because you need to know your rights. Unless you do not know it, you don't know what action you should take. So this is my message, the message I would like to share with persons with disabilities, and especially with women with disabilities. I just ask them to be strong and confident. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Ida, for your time and for all the education that you have given us and the empowerment you've given to persons with disabilities, with a special focus on our women. I think we really needed this, and it's very much appreciated. I would want to move to our next audience and then to our next panelist, and then also take their final words. Okay, so we have with us Mr. Nathaniel Labi once again. Mr. Nathaniel, I don't know if there's anything that we are leaving out, But then if there is none, we would want to take your final words.
Thank you very much for this opportunity once again. I think that persons with disabilities really have a lot to offer to our society, especially when equal opportunities are given to them. Most importantly, in the areas of education and employment. You know, when they are empowered through that aspect or through these various channels, they become more self-reliant and they can contribute effectively to nation building as well as live a self-fulfilling lives. Like you got Nina was saying, and then Madam Ida was saying, you know, you mentioned of seeing these children on the street begging.
Yes.
Now, there is an act that forbids this kind of action. It is called Beggars and Destitute Act 1969 of Ghana. So anybody who is found begging on the street, that person can be arrested by the police. And the one giving alms, if you are in a trustee and you are giving money to this person, you can also be arrested. But like
Wow.
I said earlier, it's because we are not really enforcing these kind of laws. Like by now, all these people on the street will find themselves at the rehabilitation centers, either engaging in vocational training,
Yeah.
something to be self-reliant.
Yeah.
And in your comment section, someone also mentioned that it's because the parents are also not taking responsibilities. It's also another factor.
Precisely so.
And, yes, and the person with disabilities themselves, they have to be empowered. Sometimes it is very difficult for them. You know, as we are all speaking, the reason why we are so privileged to have Mr. Peter, to have Miss Nina, to have Adia is because they have climbed the academic ladder.
That's true.
And there is history of family support, social support. Imagine if they find themselves at a place where there is no support system, the family is poor, the family themselves do not even understand the condition and they want to get rid of them, where would they find themselves? That is also another thing. So you see that, so what all in all this that we are saying, some of these persons with disabilities that I have engaged, some of them really wish to go to school, but where is the means? Going to school to further your education is not free. All
Yeah.
like free is you have to pay.
Yeah.
There is this student in UEW. She is visually impaired and hearing impaired. She has multiple disability, deaf blind. So you ask yourself, how is this person coping in school? And she's doing excellent. You see? So it doesn't matter the condition of this person, whoever it is, even the disabling condition, they are functional. They can obtain maximum functionality. They can also achieve self-actualization. They can reach that peak when all the necessary intervention plans and the appropriate structures are put in place for them.
Yeah.
Nation building is not only for an individual or the able persons. Persons with disabilities also have great effort and contribution to make in our development as a country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nathaniel, for such awesome contributions and also for giving us some of the legal, the legal aspect of this whole topic. Before we go to our other two panelists and call it a day, I would want to send my greetings to all our viewers on YouTube. And then I have a good news for you that from next week, we will be able to read your comments as well. As we speak now, we are only able to take comments from persons on Facebook. But then hopefully from next week, we will be able to read comments from our YouTube viewers as well. Let me read a little more comments that have come from our Facebook channel, and then we could take the few words from our other two panelists and call it a day. Oceanic Major says, help is what they need. Disability must be empowered even in their skills. This is from Oceanic. I saw other few comments. Papsi says, disability is more about physical and mental inability, interaction with negative environmental factors, while special needs is related to education, learning disabilities. All right. Amma Santwa says, please don't mention any of those offices. They are good for nothing. Mhm. She says our offices are just white elephants. They are good for nothing. They are not being supportive in any way. Okay, so without any further comments, let's listen to the final words from Miss Nina. All right, Miss Nina, you are on the platform, and we want to have your final words before we call it a day.
Okay. So I want to say a very big thank you for having me, for giving me the opportunity to share my experiences and share the little I know with your viewers. I'd also like to say a very big thank you to my family and my mentors. They are who have made me who I am today. But in my final words, not just to persons with disabilities, but to every other person watching us, is that life is all about living, it's all about learning, and it's all about loving.
Okay.
There is a very big difference between us who are alive and those who are dead. That difference is that we have the opportunity to see tomorrow.
Yeah.
Whether with disability or without, we have the chance to learn something new, to brighten the corner where we are, and to make the world a better place. So let's not give up, no matter what. Let's keep pushing. Let's keep living, loving, and learning. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Miss Nina. Those are very soothing words. And we appreciate your time. We appreciate the knowledge that you've shared with us. And we are very, very much grateful. Before we call it a day, let's take the final words from Mr. Peter Anomako, dear. Mr. Peter, your final
Oh,
words, please.
all right, thank you very much. We are very grateful for inviting us for this program, for us to talk to people about the capabilities of persons with disabilities and what we can contribute in building our nation.
Okay.
It is everybody's responsibility to contribute. But what I want to tell the government and everyone is that we have so many policies, legislations. If we say that we are not going to make a new one in the next 10 years and we want to really implement what we have now, I'm sure persons with disabilities will be in a better place in the next 10 years. So let us implement. There are so many policies and legislations we have, and it will not benefit only persons with disabilities. It will benefit our families, our community, and the nation. We will contribute in the building of our nation. Thank you very much, and I'm very grateful.
Thank you as well. So my producer has drawn my attention to Miss Ida. Miss Ida, we would want to hear a little bit from you in French to our French listeners. Something little in French to those who speak
Oh,
French,
okay. You
francophone
just
people.
want me to. Oh, ok. Donc, voilà mon message, le message que je lance à toutes les personnes handicapées, aussi bien les femmes également, c'est d'avoir confiance en elles-mêmes et de se dire qu'elles sont capables d'aller au-delà même de leurs capacités et également de lancer un appel au gouvernement pour que ce protocole africain relatif aux droits des personnes handicapées soit adopté et ratifié pour qu'il puisse entrer en vigueur et également de mettre en place. Ok.
Okay, so today we've gone a bit bilingual on Today Ghana News, and I would also want to say merci beaucoup, Miss Ida. Nous sommes reconnaissants. These are just my little French. Je parle français MP. Okay, I hope we've had a very interesting and entertaining program tonight, and I would want to encourage that, as we always have supported this show, you join us same time next week at 6 p.m. It's an honor to be your host for today. And I would also want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all my panelists. This show wouldn't have been awesome without you. And you have contributed immensely to this discourse today. And we want to say God richly bless you. From my producers, from my audience, from everyone listening to us on Today Ghana News TV, we want to extend our heartfelt appreciation to you. And we hope that in due time we would engage you as further. We thank you so much and have an awesome evening. See you later. Have a nice day and God bless you. Once again, I've been your host for tonight, Joyce OHENEWAA KWAPONG. Catch you same time next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye.